Welcome back to another episode of Love Sex LA Unfiltered. I'm Alexandria, and today I have a very important topic I'd like to cover and I'd like to unpack, and that is the epidemic of the partially single man, right? Listen, like in modern dating, I feel like I've come across a lot of strange patterns and a lot of crazy dating stories. But one of the craziest and the most intense, I would say, is the epidemic, or maybe it's a pandemic. It might be a pandemic, I don't know, of the partially single man. And it is not the kind of pandemic that you can cure with, or manage with a mask and a vaccine. This is like so crazy, so intense. I don't know if there's any curing it actually. And what do I mean by that? What is a partially single man? It's kind of exactly what it sounds like, right? It is a man who, claims he's single, but there's a little gray area to it. If you go to the tagged photos, you will find the ghost of their relationship past. So I've noticed this a lot, and it's kind of a twofold situation, right? Like a lot of the time, you meet someone and you're dating, and it's almost like, are they single or are they just on a hiatus from their ex? And to that, on the other side of it, their ex might be seeing them and expect them to be together in some capacity, but that man also has his one foot into singlehood, right? So I kind of want to talk about that and unpack that today because it's a very common theme I've noticed. So welcome to this episode of Love Sex LA Unfiltered, where we're going to be talking about this crazy pandemic in dating. Is anyone actually really single anymore, right? Because there is so much gray zone. There are men that are emotionally tied to the baggage of their past, right? And they claim they're single, but they're not necessarily single. They still have some sort of emotional tie, like I said, to their past. And it seems to be that they don't know how to break that tie sometimes. But, you know, when you have one foot in the past and the other, walking toward your future, in one foot in singlehood, a lot of people can get hurt, right? Like the person who you're saying you're single to, and also the person you are acting like you are still somewhat attached to. So today we're going to unpack that. And I want to start with a couple of my own situations where I was with a partially single man. And, I didn't just coin this term out of, anything. Like I coined this term because I experienced a partially single man or two or three, right? And I would say my first experience with a partially single man was when I was in high school. It was my first boyfriend. We were on and off for years. But when he met his college girlfriend, they started dating. And, he'd be with her one day though, and then they'd break up and then he and I would be together the next, right? It was kind of became this game, this silent game of tug of war between who was going to be with him that day, right? And like so stupid when you look back, but like honestly not stupid enough because I've had this situation happen, like even in my 30s. Finally I walked away for good though. But like I said, it's one of those situations where someone acts like they're single, but they still have some sort of emotional tie to their past. There was there was a couple of these situations, but another one that really stuck out to me and was like absolute textbook case of a partially single man was when I was 30. It was kind of my first like whirlwind romance, right? I was like, actually, it was more like just like a toxic situationship, but yeah. So I started seeing this guy and we matched on an app. And, I wasn't really even interested in him at first, but, he persisted and eventually I gave in. And of course, ironically, the minute I'm like, oh my gosh, I like him, right? Like once you speak those words out loud, it's almost like things fall apart. And all of a sudden, stopped hearing from him, right? Stopped hearing from him. And, a week goes by, 2 weeks go by. Then I get a text from him. Mind you, this person had told me they were divorced, right? Like they acted like they'd been divorced, not like they were in the process of divorce. But let me tell you, with a little bit of internet research and psycho girl intuition, I found out he was not so much divorced. He was in the middle of his divorce, but let me tell you, no judge had signed off on this divorce yet, right? So I find that out. I figure it out on my own. And then a week goes by again and I get a text from him. And, basically he said, hey, I got back with my wife, ex-wife, I don't know what he said, wife. And, he was like, but I still really want to be friends. Okay, that's like the minute I know I'm like swept up in this emotional tornado. So, we're kind of like friends. I don't know really what that meant in that situation, but essentially what it meant was we kind of just orbited each other until he and this ex-wife, whatever, broke up again, even finalized their divorce. Okay, like eventually, like they finalized the divorce and he and I started seeing each other, whatever. But guess what? Here's the thing. Even with a finalized divorce, months of not talking to this ex of his, he was still so emotionally attached in some sense that I truly felt like he was never fully single. And let me tell you, when things eventually fell apart with us, because obviously that was inevitable, he and this ex-wife of his, they did get back together. Even through divorce, 6 months of no talking, whatever, they did find their way back to each other again, right? So that's what I mean. Like, that's the perfect textbook example of like a man not being fully single. They are still very much emotionally attached to the past, to the person, whatever it is. And for whatever reason it might be, by the way, right? Like, it doesn't mean that it's because of you. Like, you're not lovable or you have to prove your worth to someone. Listen, it could be because they just feel more comfortable in a sense. Like, it's hard to get to know someone new, right? Like, we can all agree on that. It's hard to meet someone new. And sometimes, like, there's pieces of yourself, you know, you might not want people to know about you. And like, they've already opened that door with that person, right? So they feel like more comfortable, or that person doesn't trigger them in some sense, or it's just easier. And like, there's been situations even where I've noticed people, financially depend on that person, right? So like, it's the ease and the convenience of it. And I'm not saying that's the situation here, but I'm just saying there's all different reasons and you can't take it personally, because I know that can be really easy to do, is take it personally and make it about you. And it's not about you. It just wasn't a match, right? There was another recent situation I had that, okay, I matched with this guy on an app. And by the way, I'm not on really any apps. There's like 2 that I'm on. It's like Raya and The League. Mostly Raya though. But I matched with someone on an app, and we didn't really, like, we talked a little bit on the app, and then like we kind of just fell out of touch, and then we added each other on Instagram, right? And we start talking. He starts messaging me, and he asked me out, like trying to plan a date. Cool, whatever. And then I do what any reasonable woman does in modern dating, right? I start snooping because I'm like, gotta see what the deal is here. And I go to the tags, and well, there she is in all her glory, his ex, right? And like, it's not just like 1 or 2 photos. It's like his entire tagged grid, right? Like, just full of photos of this ex. So, can't just stop there at this point. So I go to her profile, and I mean, he's still liking her photos as of like a couple weeks prior, right? Even though like the last tag was months and months ago, he's still liking her photos, right? And like, listen, I'm not here to tell anyone what to do. I believe like you can be friends with an ex, right? Totally cool with that. Totally get it. But I mean, you can't help but question, like, is this an ex, or is this more than an ex? Or are they like not even broken up? Is this guy just like an asshole on an app, right? So, mind you, I didn't end up going out with this guy. I think it's safe to say it probably was more than an ex. I would say it's safe to say that. I mean, at the end of the day, you can be friends with an ex, like I said, but I don't know if this was necessarily an ex or someone he was just on a small little break with, right? And, listen, you got to question things when someone's like in the tags, they're still in each other's likes and each other's comments, because it probably means, I mean, listen, I know social media is not everything. There's a lot of fake stuff on there, but, I mean, liking each other's photos and all stuff and commenting on each other's stuff, like, they're probably still in each other's lives too, in a sense, right? So the thing is, it's hard now with social media because you leave a digital footprint, right? Of, who you talk to, who you were with, and your plans, basically, in a sense. You leave a digital footprint of who you've been with and, in a sense, where you're at in your life. So, I mean, it's convenient for someone like me to find out and not waste time, right? But it's also like, it's kind of scary because anyone can know anything about you. And I mean, if you're out here trying to act like you're single when you're not, it's probably not the best idea. At least untag yourself or something, right? And, like I mentioned earlier, this is kind of a twofold situation because us single women are not the only victims of the partially single man, right? Like, it's one thing when you're like dating someone and then you find out that they're still talking to an ex or emotionally attached or they were just on a break, right? Like that's already difficult enough, especially when they let it get too far. Like that's the whole problem here is if someone is not fully single and pursuing you and then they let it get too far, of course you're going to get hurt, right? If you like the person. And on the other side of that, like I mentioned earlier, there's also another person out there on the other side of this who was dating this person, has history with this person, and cares for this person, obviously, in some sense, if they're still, going back and forth with them, right? Like their ex-girlfriend, ex-wife, whatever it is, who's out there and still has hope for some sort of future with them, like they might not realize that this person is also pursuing other people and like dating and on apps, whatever it is. And, that's the thing. Like, someone is bound to get hurt, and maybe even more than one person is bound to get hurt, right? So, and I think it's easy too. I think it's very easy to be a partially single man in modern dating because of the fact that there's so many ways to communicate with people. Like you can be emotionally invested with a person that you've never even met before. Think about how many people you know from just social media or online or apps or people that like stream games, whatever it is. Like you meet people online and you feel like you know them and you could have never met them before in your life, right? So I think it's easy for people to fall into these like relationships, or even if it's just like some sort of emotional talking type situation, whatever. And, in a sense, you are single, right? Like you might not have ever met the person. And so you're still talking to an ex and then you're talking to this person, whatever. But I think that it's easier to do than people realize. And it's easier to get swept into something and not realize that that person is not actually single, or, they still have some sort of emotional ties to their past, right? And like I said earlier, none of this is your job to try and prove that you're lovable. Like once you find out someone might have like is with someone else or is dating someone else, or they are still seeing their ex, talking to their ex, trying to figure things out with their ex, like that doesn't mean like it's your job now to prove your lovability to this person. In fact, it's the opposite. It means it's time to let them go, because when it's the right person, you are not going to have to fight for their attention, their focus, their love. And you do not want to be just someone's distraction in their healing era, right? Like if they just broke up with a person, or like the situation I was talking about, they were in the middle of a divorce. Like I was essentially, when I look back, I was a distraction during his healing era, right? And you deserve more than to be someone's distraction. You deserve to be the person they don't want to be distracted from, right? Like you deserve their full attention, their full focus. And, anyone that makes you feel less than that isn't going to be your person, which I know can be hard when you think you have a connection with someone, or you think like, oh my gosh, like how am I ever going to find someone like this again, right? But listen, 8 billion people in the world, I'm sure you will manage, right? And, there was a little story. I've seen it a couple times on social media, and I thought it was really relevant to what I'm talking about. Some people, it's just in their nature, right? Like I was saying, like you want to sit there and prove like, wait, but we have a connection, but I'm lovable. Please choose me, right? Like that's the mindset I feel like we've been so conditioned to have, especially as women, is like, as women, we want to be chosen, right? We want to be chosen. That's what we've been conditioned and groomed to do. And you deserve more than that. You deserve to be the one choosing who you want in your life and who's good for you and who is going to, have a complete life with you and give you their focus and attention and love, right? So, but there was a little story I saw, and I thought it was very relevant to this topic in a sense, because like I said, some people, it's just in their nature. They cannot help themselves because, they might be going through something and they might need validation from like an ex and someone else, whatever it is. Everyone's got their own situations going on. But the story I saw was called The Story of the Frog and the Scorpion. And the scorpion went to the frog and said, "Can you carry me across the river?" And the frog said, "But why would I do that? You are going to sting me. You're going to sting me. Why would I carry you across the river?" And the scorpion said, "Wait, why would I do that? If I sting you, we will both sink, right?" So the frog agrees, and he carries the scorpion. And as they're, going across the river, what does the scorpion do? The scorpion stings the frog. And the frog was like, why would you do that? Like, you said you weren't going to do that. Now we're both going to sink. Like, why would you do that? And the scorpion just smiled and said, I can't help it. It's in my nature. It's who I am. And I think that's so relevant because you have to remember sometimes that, not sometimes, like most of the time, you have to remember, like I mentioned earlier, it's not about you. It's not about taking it personally and thinking, wait, why did they choose someone else? Why didn't they choose me? Because at the end of the day, it's not going to be that stressful when you meet the right person. It's not going to be difficult. It's not going to be complicated. And another thing, the right person, someone that truly loves you and cares about you and is considerate of like how you feel, their biggest fear, it's not going to be losing you. Their biggest fear is not going to be losing you. It's going to be hurting you. And by, making someone else a priority or, kind of living in that gray zone of being partially single, that they know at the end of the day, when they let that get too far, it's going to hurt you. And the right person is not going to do that, right? And, I think, like I kind of touched on earlier, I think that we kind of start to question ourselves and we start to kind of question, well, wait, why would they choose them? Or why are they not interested enough in me to end that situation with someone else? And, there's so many things. I started to talk about it earlier. Sometimes it's just the familiarity, right? Like familiarity breeds comfort, and some people aren't ready or willing to stray from that comfort because it can be difficult. And like I said, getting to know someone new can be difficult, and letting them see all of, your flaws and your weaknesses, right? That can be hard. So sometimes it's the familiarity of what that person has with their ex, and letting go of that baggage of those emotional ties can be difficult, especially like when you have history with someone. And you just have to remember, when someone has a reckless disregard for how they make you feel and they keep one foot in the past and one foot, headed towards you. I mean, that is being like reckless with your feelings. And it's not your job to prove your lovability to someone. When a man proves himself as incompatible with you, or as like, he's not fully pursuing you, that's when it's time to walk away. Because at the end of the day, you can't build a future with a man who's still living in his past, right? And I think that's one of the most difficult lessons you learn to, even as an adult. Like, honestly, like, you hear about like the term teenage angst. I think adult angst and dating as an adult is actually even more anxiety inducing in a sense, right? But you learn as an adult and as you get older that your job is to just be yourself, be your authentic self, and whoever you attract with that is going to be who's meant for you in your life, right? And anyone who makes you feel like you are playing second fiddle, or that you aren't good enough, or that they have to have you and someone else around, like, that is not your person. So if I could tell you to take one lesson from today, or one important piece of information from today, it's this. I don't know if anyone's really fully single anymore, right? And it seems to be that a lot of people have emotional baggage they carry with them into new relationships, and they have strings attached to the past that they just can't cut off, they can't let go of. But when it's the right person, when it's a person that is meant for you, it's not being forced. You don't have to feel like you're proving like you're lovable and you're choosable, or you want to be chosen, right? When it's the right person, there is going to be, no matter what history they have with someone else, no matter, who they dated, whatever it is, they will choose you over and over again, and you will choose them back, and it'll just flow effortlessly and easily, and things will happen naturally. You're not going to have to sit there and snoop in their Instagram tagged photos, check out their Venmo transactions, whatever it is, right? Like, you are not going to have to, you will not have the angst and anxiety that you're feeling with a person who's not meant for you, who you're trying to force a situation, and who you're trying to prove to them, like, just choose me, right? Because that's all ego. And when you're in modern dating or whatever, like whether it's dating or careers, whatever, you can't lead with ego. You have to lead with, first of all, your intuition, because when it's the wrong person or the wrong career or, whatever it is you're dealing with, when you lead with your intuition, you'll know when something's right for you, right? You have to lead with your heart because, again, those are the things like you'll feel when it's right. And, I think that when you lead with those things, you are going to attract the right people. And another really important thing is you cannot be afraid to walk away, right? I mean, like that's important in business, in relationships, in any kind of situation you're in, you can't be afraid to walk away. It's one thing too if it's like it's hard to walk away from a good situation, right? Like if there was some sort of situation you were in or had some sort of great job or with a great guy, but like the circumstances weren't right, that's hard. But like if we're talking about a guy that's like seeing someone else or is emotionally attached to his past, right? That should be pretty easy to walk away from, even if it hurts, even if it stings. You can't be afraid to walk away. And here's the thing, like I said earlier, some people, they just don't want to feel the discomfort, right? Like that's why they hold on to the past, hold on to an ex, hold on to a career or a job that's making them miserable. But when you are unafraid to walk away and you do not settle, that is when you invite things into your life that are truly meant for you, are truly good for you, and things you're actually going to love and are going to love you back, right? And I know it's easier said than done. Believe me, I get it. There's been times where I'm like, I thought this was my person. How am I going to find a connection like this again or whatever it is? But I'm going to tell you, every single one of those situations, the minute you walk away, the minute you allow another door to open and you can't be afraid to walk through it, right? Because sometimes it's scary. You can see a door open and you're like, I'm scared to go there because it's the unknown. But let me tell you, I think you're better off walking through a door of the unknown than staying in a situation that's stagnant, stale, and honestly, like not that exciting. Like how many of you are with someone that, okay, sure, you think there's a connection, you have a good time together, but like, is it really that exciting? Like it probably isn't. And there's probably something more exciting for you out there. And even if you have to be alone for a little bit, not date, not see with someone, right? Sometimes you have to be alone with yourself. And that even invites in like more abundance, more clarity, and allows you to manifest the things that maybe you didn't even think you wanted or knew you needed, right? So, okay, I'm so excited. This was so fun, this episode today. And listen, I don't know. Like I said, is anyone ever really single anymore? It seems to be a gray area. You're out there online, you're in the tags, and you're like, look at, they still have like a girlfriend or a wife or something, right? I don't know if anyone's fully single anymore. It seems like it can be difficult to find someone who doesn't have some sort of emotional baggage or tie to their past. But I'll say it again, the right person will make you feel cherished and loved and desired, and they will have your full attention and vice versa. And the right person will be fully single. The right person will not let any ex or emotional baggage from the past affect how their relationship is with you. Because, like I said, a person that truly cares about you is not going to want to see you get hurt. So it will be way easier than we make it out to be. Because sometimes we complicate dating. We complicate relationships because we force things that aren't meant for us. And we complicate it too by thinking, well, if I just did this or said this or became like this or allowed them to do this, then it'll work out, right? Like, and I'll suffer a little and have to dim my shine, but we'll be together at least, right? And to me, there is no one in this life that is worth dimming your shine for or lowering your standards, because the right person isn't going to want you to do those things. They're going to actually illuminate you even more and want you to stand out even more. And yeah, I think that's really important to remember in dating, is you never have to dim your shine for the right person or lower your standards or say, I'm not good enough, so if I did this, maybe they'll like me, right? So I'm so glad you guys were able to come watch this episode and listen. Don't let the partially single man dim your shine. Let them revel in the comfort of their past and move on so you can find someone who's ready for a future with you. Thank you guys so much, and I will see you guys next week.